Okay, so welcome students, welcome to the 21st lecture, okay, where we are covering module number 3, income under heads, profits and gains from business and profession under subject direct taxation. So we already know what all is covered under this module, and today we are going to deal with the continuation of problems on computation of income from business and profession of individual SSC depreciation. We will see in the next lecture. So today we'll be continuing with the problems on computation of income from business and profession. One problem from this particular module is sure to come even on depreciation and even on computation of income from profits and gains from business or profession. So again, I'm revising the same slide because this format is important. If you keep this format in mind, it will help you to solve the problems. So we always start with net profit as per the statement of P&L account. By the end of this lecture, like last 5 minutes of this lecture, maybe I can ask anyone to just tell me this format. So please pay attention, students. Net profit as per the statement of P&L account you take first, then you add all the expenses which are debited to the P&L account but they are not allowable. When I say not allowable means as per the income tax act, those expenses were actually not supposed to be debited to the P&L account, but they have been debited in order to reduce the profit. So to derive at the correct profit, we have to add back all the expenses that are debited to the P&L account, but they are not allowable. Then we have to list all the expenditures which are allowed, but they are not debited to the statement of P&L account. Then we have to list all the incomes which are credited to the P&L account, but they are taxable under some other head, or they are not taxable under the head of business or profession. And then we need to add deemed income. Usually recovery of bad debts is usually asked in the problems, and that is a deemed income. So we need to add it back. Once we give effect to all these, then we get the correct profits or gains from business or profession on which an individual SSA is supposed to pay tax or is liable to pay tax. So method of calculating taxable profit, as we already know, I will just quickly go through it. What should be debited? Only what is allowed as per act, expenses relating to the previous year, revenue expenses only, and trading losses only. Means everything that is relating to the day-to-day working of the organization or the company, all the expenses which are revenue in nature and trading losses only will be given effect. Next, what should be credited is all the incomes that are taxable only under this particular head, incomes relating to the previous year, all revenue incomes only, you need not consider capital incomes, and incomes which are being ignored, you have to consider that. Next, what should not be debited and what should not be credited is expenses which are not allowed as per the act, which we have already seen from the provisions from section 30 to 43D. Different provisions we have seen, different things that are not allowed, we have seen separately in those provisions. Next, whatever is disallowed as per act, that also we have to not consider. Expenses which are not relating or incomes not relating to previous year, we need not consider. Then only we need to consider, suppose it is a cash basis, then we can consider. But if it is mercantile basis, if the SEC is following mercantile or accrual system of accounting, then we need not consider if the income is not or the expense is not relating to previous year. Then not related to business and profession, those things we need not consider. Capital nature we need not consider. Personal expenses we need not consider. All these expenses we need not consider. Similarly, incomes which are not of capital nature we need not consider, and which are taxable under any other head, that also we need not consider. So let us now continue with the problems on profits and gains from business or profession. We have already completed 4 problems. Today we will be seeing some more problems. Okay, So starting with the problem number 4. Okay, it is not necessary, students, that every time they give you the P&L account and based on the P&L account you need to draw your answer. It is not necessary. They may give in the form of a statement or sentences also. So this problem is like that. During the previous year 1920, profit and loss account of Sri Raj, proprietor of Raj Enterprises, engaged in the business of ready-made garments, shows a profit of 1,50,000 with the following information. So with considering these information, the profit of Sri Raj is showing 1,50,000. So compute his taxable income from business. Now, how does our answer begins with? Our answer always begins with the profit that is being given. So first we begin our answer with computation of profits and gains of business and profession of Sri Raj for the assessment year 2020-2021. So we always start with the net profit as per P&L account, which is 1,50,000. So we start with that. Later, what we have to do is just go through all this information and see whether they're allowed or disallowed. If these particular items are allowed, then need not give effect in the main answer. But if these expenses or these incomes are disallowed, then only we need to give effect in the main answer. So we start first. Interest on capital rupees 5,000. Students, you all tell me what is the meaning of capital. Can anyone tell me what is the meaning of capital? Because students, you need to analyze, understand each item and then decide upon whether it is allowable or disallowable as per the act. So tell me, students, what is the meaning of capital? Students, what is the meaning of capital? Am I audible to you all?
Yes, ma'am.
So what is the meaning of capital?
Ma'am, capital is the initial.
Capital is an amount. Okay, tell Yashaswini.
You can tell.
Quick.
Ma'am, capital is an initial investment made by a person to start up a business, ma'am, in the form of asset or anything.
Okay, very good. So that means Raj. He is a proprietor and he is contributing a capital on which he has earned a interest of 5,000. Means what is this sentence stating? That Raj has invested some capital on which he's getting interest of rupees 5,000. Now, when he's paying interest to himself, is it allowable or is it disallowable?
Disallowable.
Tell me. Disallowable, because any amount paid by the business to himself means to the proprietor himself, is always disallowed. Okay, very good. That is why interest on capital.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, tell me.
Ma'am, Stephen is waiting.
I am accepting everyone, dear.
Ma'am, he's waiting from long time, but he's not able to get into the class.
Okay, tell him to once again log in.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, students. So where were we? Interest on capital. Did everyone understand this adjustment? Okay, so what an example can do is you can write note number 1 in case you all want to give any explanation for it. So note number 1, interest on capital to proprietor is not allowed as no one can earn from a transaction with himself. Because the proprietor himself is putting the money into the business, whatever interest is earning is on his capital is the money that he's giving to himself. So it will be disallowed. Next, Purchases include goods of rupees 12,000 from his younger brother in cash. That means Raj has carried out certain purchases of 12,000 rupees from his younger brother in cash. However, the market value of such goods was 9,000. Now, see, to run a business, purchases is very important. But what is happening in this sentence, what we are understanding is, if he could have gone in the market and purchased, he would have purchased at 9,000. But he has increased his expenses by purchasing it from his brother at 12,000. So his P&L account, the debit side, there is an increase in an expense of 12,000, which is reducing his profit and thereby will be reduce his tax. So tell me, students, how much will be allowed and how much will be disallowed in this? The actual market value is 9,000, but it is his brother who is again a relative, and from him he is purchasing at 12,000. So tell me, students, whether the entire 12,000 will be allowed, because purchases is something which is relating to business. You cannot deny that fact. But in the market, the value is 9,000. From his brother, he is purchasing from 12,000. So what amount will be allowable as per you all? Or what?
9,000 is allowable and 3,000 is allowable.
Very good, very good. So now you are able to analyze and understand what is related to business, what is not related to business, what should actually be allowed, what should not actually be allowed. So payment to relative in excess of market value of goods. So 3,000 rupees, as one of our students have correctly answered it. So it is 3,000 rupees. I hope you all have understood how you have got this 3,000. So we see note number 2, so that to give a proper explanation. Any unreasonable payment, it is unreasonable. Actually, the reasonable payment is only 9,000. So any unreasonable payment to relative is disallowed. Hence, 3,000 is disallowed. Now, students, one more. When I was teaching you all provisions, we have come across one provision under section 40A3, which says that if the cash payment, if a proprietor is making a cash payment in excess of 10,000, the entire amount will be disallowed. But here that provision will not apply. Why? Because here only 9,000 we are allowing. Correct? So 9,000 is not exceeding 10,000, therefore, and because it is in cash. So remember, students, there is a provision which says that any amount paid to any single person in excess of 10,000, okay, in cash will always be disallowed. But that provision we will not apply here since we are allowing only 9,000. Okay. Next. Did everyone understand the second one? Second point?
Yes,
Students,
ma'am.
are you all sleeping?
Yes, ma'am. Understood.
Okay, good. Now wake up. Okay, next. Interest paid outside India 1 lakh without deducting tax, TDS, that is deducting tax at source. This, when I was explaining the provisions, I already told you that whatever interest is paid outside India, tax has to be deducted on that. And if tax is not deducted on that, then whatever interest is paid, it will be disallowed. So this would have been allowed if tax would have been paid, but it is without deducting tax at source. So this 1 lakh rupees will be disallowed. So if it is disallowed expenditure, then what we have to do is add it back to the net profit. So we see note number 3. Interest paid outside India without deducting tax at source is disallowed under section 40 subsection subclause A. Next. Penalty paid to government for non-filing of GST return 5,000. Now, yesterday only regarding penalty I have explained. So can you all tell me, students, does this particular expenditure or penalty, is it an allowable expenditure or disallowable expenditure?
Disallowable expenditure, ma'am.
Very good. Why it is
Disallowable.
disallowable? Because it is something you are paying for not following the law. Non-filing of GST returns means GST return have to be filed within due date. If you're not complying with the due date, you have to pay penalty. So that is what you're not following the due dates provided in the law. So it is an infringement of the law, and therefore penalty paid is to be disallowed. So if it is disallowed, what are we supposed to do? If it is disallowed, we need to add it back to the profit. So penalty paid to government for non-filing of GST return 5,000 has to be disallowed. Note number 4 says that any penalty made for infringement of law, that is going against the law, if you're making any payment, it is disallowed. Next, penalty paid to a customer for non-fulfilling of order within time. Now students, tell me this, whether it is to be allowed or disallowed. Take your time, think whether it is to be allowable or it is disallowed. This penalty is paid to a customer for non-filling of order within time. What happens usually? You tell a customer that we will give allowable. Very good. It is an allowable expenditure because this is not something.
Yes, ma'am. Allowable.
Very good. So this is an allowable expenditure because it is something which is relating to the business, number 1. Number 2, this is not infringement of law. Here you're not going against some law. It is something that you had promised the customer you will do, and if you have not fulfilled the order in time, you are liable for penalty. Next, bad debts are 1 lakh rupees, and if it is allowable, there is no question of treatment in the answer. Next, bad debts is 1 lakh rupees, and money, this 1 lakh rupees bad debts has arisen because money has been advanced for the purchase of building. So Mr. Raj had purchased some building for which he had given an advance money of 1 lakh rupees, and now he's not able to recover that advance money back. So it became bad debts. So tell me students whether this bad debts will be allowable or disallowable. See, bad debts, if it is relating to the business, it is allowable. Bad debts, if it is revenue in nature, it is allowable.
Disallowable, ma'am.
It is allowable or disallowable?
Disallowable.
Disallowable.
Why? Can you tell me the reason?
It purchase of building means personal, ma'am. It is.
It is a capital in nature.
Capital.
It is not revenue in. Correct. Very good. So I'm very happy students are giving good answers. So bad debts will be disallowed, and the reason is very simple. We see note number 6, which says that bad debts is allowed only when the debt has been taken into account as income of the previous year or earlier years. Since the debt is in respect of purchase of building, which was not considered as the income of the previous year, hence disallowed. So what does this sentence mean? This means that bad debts can arise in your book only when you have made credit sales. Correct? Credit sales means when you have to receive money from your debtor. That is, you have recorded it as sales, you have to receive money from your debtor. Sales become your income. But in this case, it is a purchase of building which is capital in nature. It is not recorded as your sales. Therefore, it is disallowed. Next, revenue expenditure on promoting family planning among employees. Now this I'll tell you, there is a provision which says that if any revenue expenditure is made for promoting family planning among employees, this is an allowable expenditure. So if it is an allowable expenditure, there is no need for adjustment in the main answer. There is a provision which specifically says that any family planning promotion is being made among the employees, which is in revenue in nature, will always be allowed in order to spread awareness. Next, premium paid on the health of the employees, 6,000 in cash. So let me explain this. Premium paid on the health of the employees. Employees are relating to the business. Health of the employees is the main care that the business is supposed to take. And if the company is taken insurance on the health of the employees where it is paying premium, it is allowable only when the business is paying the money in check. Now, in this case, since the business is paying money in cash, it will be disallowed. Why? Because many a times when the payment is made in cash, you can show unnecessary payments. You cannot back up that payment with some proof that you have actually paid it for premium. So, premium paid on the health of the employees will be allowable only if it is paid in check. Since it is paid in cash, it is to be disallowed. So, if it is disallowed, what are we going to do? Premium paid on the health of the employees in cash, we are going to add it back since it is paid in cash and not check. So we see note number 8. Note number 8 tells us that payment of insurance premium on the health of employees in check is allowed under section 36, but in cash is disallowed. Next. Premium paid on the health of his relative 6,000 in check. Now students, this common sense, you will tell me whether it is relating to business, whether it is allowable or disallowable. This you all can judge and tell me. So students, tell me whether this particular expense will be allowable or disallowable.
Disallowable, ma'am.
Disallowable. It's not business purpose.
Huh?
It's disallowable.
Disallowable, ma'am.
It is going to be
Personal use.
very good. Disallowable because relative is nowhere connected to the business. Correct. So it is to be disallowed. And if it is to be disallowed, even if it is in check, cash, irrespective, it is paid for relative, it is disallowed. If it is disallowed, what we are going to do? We are going to add it back, and we have added it back. And that again, we have covered it in point number 9, giving an explanation as to why we have added it back. Next, employer's contribution to recognized provident fund. Students, remember it is recognized provident fund. Okay. Employer's contribution to recognized provident fund is 12,000. Half of the amount is paid after due date as per the relevant act, but before filing return of income tax. So students, I've already covered in the provisions that whenever there is an employer contribution to recognized provident fund, it will be allowed if the entire payment is made before filing the return of income tax. So before the due date, it is not when you file, it is before the due date of filing the return of income tax. Suppose if the amount of payment is made before the due date of filing return of income tax, it will be allowable. So for every particular year, for previous year, suppose 1920, the due date is usually 30th September, but the government usually postpones the due date, extends the due date, but usually it is 30th September. So what happens in this case? Tell me whether it is allowable or disallowable. 12,000 employer is contributing to recognized provident fund, okay, and he is making the payment before due date of filing return of income tax. So tell me whether it is an allowable expenditure or disallowable expenditure.
6,000 is disallowable, ma'am, because after due date, half amount.
Dear, it is before due date. Half amount is paid after due date as per the relevant act, but before due date of filing income tax return. What I have told you all, that contribution to RPF will be allowed if the payment is made always before filing the income tax return. If it is made after filing the income tax return, then it is to be disallowed. So tell me students, in this case, whether it is allowable or disallowable. You have to only see the filing return of due date of filing return of income tax.
Okay, ma'am, allowable.
Very good. So it is an allowable expense because it is made before filing the return of income tax. Next, employees' contribution to RPF is 10,000. Half of the amount is paid after the due date as per the relevant act and after filing return of income tax. So students, tell me, if it is after filing return of income tax, will this half amount be allowable or disallowable?
Disallowable.
Disallowable.
Why? Because the payment is made after filing the return of income tax. So what are we going to do is 5,000, 10,000 divided by 2, that is 5,000 rupees is employee's contribution to RPF. Okay, 5,000 will be disallowed. What is the reason? Because it is made after filing the return of income tax. Point number 11, any sum received from employees as contribution toward RPF is allowed only when such sum has been credited to the fund within the due date prescribed in the relevant act, that is within the before the filing of return of income tax. Next, interest on loan from SBI is 10,000. Okay, 5,000 is not paid till the due date of filing return of income. Tell me, students, now what is allowable and disallowable? See, we had seen one provision where it was saying that interest on loan will be allowed only on payment basis. Means if you are making payment in a particular previous year or before the filing the return of income tax, then only you are going to get the benefit of it. That is, then only it will be allowable. If you're simply showing interest on loan in your books and you have not made the interest on payment, then you will not get the benefit of it. You will not get the deduction of it. So in this case, 5,000 is not paid till the due date of filing the return. So tell me, students, whether this is an allowable or disallowable expenditure. Specifically, we had seen a provision which stated that any interest on loan will be allowed only when the actual payment is made, that too before filing the return of income tax. Now here, out of 10,000, 5,000 is not yet paid till the due date of filing the return. So will we get a deduction of this? Is it allowable? Students? Half will be disallowed because half amount is not yet paid, and interest on loan, let it be from any scheduled bank. Okay, from any scheduled bank, if you're taking interest on loan, it will be allowed only and only if you're making the payment of it before filing the due date of return. Simply without making payment, payment means either cash basis, check basis, whatever basis. So simply without making the payment, if you're showing that expenditure, you will not get the benefit of it. So 5,000 rupees interest on loan from SBI will be added back because it is not paid within the due date of filing the return of income tax. Next, interest on late refund from income tax department. Now see here, what is the meaning of refund? Usually when you're paying tax to the income tax department, if you have paid more tax, the income tax department gives you a refund. Suppose the tax payable by you is 10,000 and you have paid 15,000 to the income tax department. Since you have paid excess tax to the department, it gives you a refund of 5,000 rupees along with interest if it is making the refund payment late. So this is a receipt. This is not your expenditure, students, because interest on late refund from income tax department is your receipt. It is your income. It is not your expenditure. So tell me, students, is this income related to your business? Should it be given effect in the main answer, or is it correct? This is interest received on late refund from income tax departments. Means income tax department is giving you a refund on which it is paying you interest. So it becomes your income. It doesn't become your expenditure. Now tell me whether it is relating to business or no.
No, ma'am.
Okay. It is not relating to business because income tax what you're paying at the first instant only is not your business expenditure. Income tax what you had paid, it was your personal expenditure, because in income tax you have other heads of income also. So whatever refund you're getting of your income tax, it is not your business income. Therefore, but this had been given effect in this net profit because 1,50,000 with the following information. So this income had been given effect in the net profit. So we have to remove this income from the net profit. If we want to remove this income from the net profit, what are we supposed to do? Less income taxable under other head but credited to P&L account. That is interest on late refund from income tax department, rupees 500. This will be coming under income from other sources. Next is depreciation being not debited in accounts. Means depreciation, there was an expense of 20,000 of depreciation which is actually allowed, but it had not been debited in the accounts. So that means this had been forgotten to be debited. So should we give effect to this? Yes, because depreciation, they're telling it is allowed as per section 32. So what we are going to do is less expenditures allowed but not debited in P&L account, depreciation 20,000. So we have completed all the items, okay, and we have analyzed whether it is allowable, disallowable. Based on that, we have given effect to the net profit. And after adding all this and deducting the items which are not allowable, we get net profit and gains from business or profession as 3,64,500. So students, have you all understood this particular problem? In your exam, what you need to do is whatever needs to be added, expenditure disallowed but debited in P&L account, you just take a total of it, write it in the inner column, take the total of it in the outer column, then take the total of net profit and that particular amount. Then you deduct expenditure allowable but not debited in P&L account. Do step by step, just don't at the last, just don't add up everything. Step by step, take the total, and then the final total you last write it. That is the taxable business income from business or profession, or profits and gains of business. Now this is not profession, so it is only profits and gains of business. So students, have you all understood this particular sum? Can we move ahead? Any doubts? Any doubts, students? Students?
No, ma'am, no doubts.
No, ma'am.
Okay, moving ahead to the problem number 5. Okay, Mr. Sunil is a practicing chartered accountant. See, his work, his actual profession is what? He is a practicing chartered accountant. He also runs a private coaching institute. Okay, his bank accounts for the year ended 31/3/2020 is given below. So here you have all receipts side. Here they have not given you the P&L account. Okay, students. So many a times you may get questions where P&L account is absolutely not given to you all, or where P&L account is not given in the format as we have seen in a previous sum problem. All payments are given on your right hand side. So if the P&L account is not given, how do we derive at the net profit, correct net profit? We just take the business incomes, we minus the business expenses, we will get the correct net profit on which the SSC is liable to pay tax. So is it clear? You all need not worry in the exam that net profit is not given. What you have to do is, among the receipts, just pick the business receipts. Among the payments, just pick the business payments. Minus the both, you'll get the net profit on which you're supposed to pay the tax. SSC is supposed to pay the tax. Additional information also is given. So first, one by one, we will see. 2 audit fees. See, his main profession is a practicing chartered accountant. So tell me, is audit fees a profession income, or is it a personal income, or is it an income from other source for Mr. Sunil?
Income from profession.
Students, a chartered accountant really does the work of, yes?
Income from other source, ma'am, because he also runs private coaching.
How is it an income from? Students, see here, Mr. Sunil is a practicing chartered accountant. When I say practicing chartered accountant, his main profession is running a chartered accountancy consultancy or work of chartered accountant, correct? So, and what does a chartered accountant do? He audits, okay, he files the return of income tax, he gives professional work like consultancy, okay, legal opinion, advices, right? He certifies the things. So that is what is the work done by a practicing chartered accountant. Since the word practicing is given, that means his main profession is he is a practicing chartered accountant. He also runs a private coaching institute. This is a side by business. Okay, like for example, me, I have a practicing chartered accountancy firm, okay, where I'm a partner. Side by, I also work in Jain College of Institution, but that doesn't mean but what it means that my main profession is I'm a practicing chartered accountant, but just for passion or maybe just for uh, uh, enhancing knowledge among the students, I'm running I'm delivering lectures. So he also runs a private coaching institute, means besides practicing, he's also having a private coaching institute at the side. So his main profession is what? He's a chartered accountant. Is this clear?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So tell me, to audit fees, is it relating to his profession? Now this entire chapter is profits and gains from business and profession, correct? So audit fees, is this fees what he's collecting from his clients, is it a profession income or is it a other income?
Ma'am, professional.
Profession income.
Very good, students. Now you all have understood it. So in this problem, what they're asking is compute his gross total income. Means they're not telling us to only compute business income. When I say gross total income, means they're telling compute income from salary also, income from house property, income from business or profession, income from capital gains, income from other sources. All these 5 heads of incomes, if you add, you will get gross total income. So we will analyze one by one and then we will give effect. You all told me audit fees is a business income, and since it is a business income, profession income, see, profits and gains from business or profession, audit fees we have written here 2 lakh rupees. Okay. Next, to income from other professional work. Is this a profession income or income from other source, or is it a house property income, or is it a income from salary? What is it?
Profession income, ma'am.
Very good. It is a profession income. Why? Because it is from other professional work. So where it is going to come? It is going to come under the head profits and gains of business or profession. So income from professional work is here we have covered it. Next. Now you all have to analyze and tell. Now to coaching fees. He's also side by he's running some coaching institute. So to coaching fees is 1,200. Now coaching fees is his profession income or it is an other income for him? Is it an income from other source? Other source, correct? So it is not going to come under the head of business or profession. It is going to come under the head of income from other sources. Okay, under this particular heading, we are going to write coaching fees. How much? 1,200. Okay. Next, interest on investment. Now he must have made some investment somewhere. So whatever interest is earning on the investment, is it a professional income? Is it an income from other source? Or is it a house property income? Or is it an income from salary? Students, interest on investment is always an other sources.
Other source from
Other sources. So where we are going to show it under which heading? Income from other sources, interest on investment, 2,000 rupees. Next, we'll just go a little quick to examiner's fees. Now his main profession is chartered accountant. Chartered accountant doesn't do the work of exam like evaluation or supervisor, but he's got two examiners fees. That means he had gone somewhere for examination. So is this an income from profession, other sources, house property, salary, or capital gains? What is this? Under which income you're going to show this?
Ma'am, other source.
Very good. So under the head of other sources, we are going to show examiner's fees as ₹1,000. Next, to rent from property. Now this rent from property, it is going to come under which head? House property or other sources, or very good. Very good. Gross annual. We have seen this format for house property, but this calculation is not there. Sums relating to house property you will not get in your exam, but gross annual value is nothing but rent whatever you're receiving, which is ₹5,000, which we have shown. Okay, so we have completed all the receipt sides. Now let us see payment side. By office expenses, is it a business expense? Which expense it is? Personal expense, or is it a other source expense? Which expense is this? Office expense.
Business expenses.
It's income from business.
Correct. So where it is going to come? It is going to come under the heading profits and gains from business or profession, less expenses allowed. So it is a office expense is allowed. 18,000 we are allowing it. Next, municipal tax paid on property. Which expense is this? When you're paying tax on some property that you're having. So under which expense does this come? House property expense, or business expense, or other source expense?
House property.
It
Income
comes
from house
under-
property. Less.
Very good. So all your incomes from a particular head, you have to deduct all the expenditures. So rent received was 5,000, out of which you give 800 as municipal tax. Remaining is 4,200. Next, by coaching expenses. Now, when the coaching fees is income from other source, then coaching expense should be shown under which source of income? Now, if the coaching fees is an income from other source, coaching expense also will be shown in income from other sources only. So less coaching from your coaching fees, you have to deduct your coaching expenses. Then you will get your net coaching fees as ₹400. So from the respective income, you have to minus the respective expense in order to get the net income. Okay. Next, personal expenses. Which head of income are you going to show this? Quick, students. Personal expense is not going to come under any head of income because it is your personal expenditure. Will you show it anywhere? No, it is your no. So very good. It is not going to come anywhere. Next, by membership fees. I'll tell you what is membership fees. When you have to become a member of chartered accountant, usually every profession has to pay membership fees to the institute who is qualifying it as a chartered accountant. So membership fees is relating to continuing your practice as a chartered accountant. You need to pay some fees as being a member of chartered accountant. So tell me membership fees. Where will you show this?
Income from business and profession.
Very good. So we have shown here membership fees, ₹500. Next, by life insurance premium 13,000. Tell me, students, life insurance premium you're paying on yourself. It is a personal expenditure, correct? It is on the life of yourself, SSE himself. So will you show any of the personal expenditure on any of the heads of income? Yes, students?
No, ma'am.
Very good. Next, by income tax. Will you show it anywhere? No, because income tax again is a personal expenditure. Very good. By motor car purchased 1,80,000. Now, will you show this anywhere? under any head of income, you cannot show it because house property does not cover motor car. Capital gain does not cover motor car. And motor car purchase is a capital in nature, therefore it will not come under the head business or profession. It is your expenditure. It is not going to fall anywhere. Next, but students, if this motor car is used for business purpose, the depreciation is revenue in nature, which has to come under the expenses allowed. So let us see what is given regarding motor car. Some additional information is given. 20% of motor car expenses are in respect of profession. Okay, and depreciation on the motor car is 27,000. 20% is used for profession. Depreciation is revenue in nature, correct? So in this motor car expenses, will you take the entire expenses as profession expense, or only 20% you will take as profession expense allowable? You will take only 20% because only 20% is used for the business. So 10,200 into 20% is your allowable expense, which you are going to deduct from your allowable income. So motor car expenses, 20% of expenses. So it is 2040. Next, I told you all depreciation is an allowable expense. Now depreciation is on the motor car purchase. So 1,80,000 depreciation on motor car is 15%, and only 20% is used for profession, which is 5,400. Or directly what you can do here, it is given depreciation is 27,000. This 27,000 is the entire depreciation. You have to take 27,000 into 20%. Why? Because only 20% is used for profession. So depreciation on motor car, 20% of depreciation amount, that is 5,400. Next is by insurance on property. Now in the house property, we have seen the format that gross annual value less municipal taxes paid less deduction under section 24, where nowhere insurance on property expense is covered. Therefore, this is again not to be given effect. So we have covered all the expenses and all the receipts. Okay. Now we have to see this gross net annual value. We've got 4,200. Okay, by deducting gross annual value less municipal taxes. And we know that under house property, we have two deductions, standard deduction and interest on loan. No information on interest on loan was given. Therefore, we have taken it as nil. And standard deduction is 30% of NAV. That is 30% of 4,200, which is 1,260. So income from house property we got as 2,940. Income from profits and gains from business and profession we got as 2,74,060, and income from other sources we got as 3,400. When we add all the three sources of income, we get the gross total income, which is 2,77,460 rupees. Now we had completed this two particular additional information. This one additional information is remaining. Outstanding fees of previous year 15-16 is 10,000 rupees, which is received during the year, which is included in the audit fees. Actually, if we were, the SSC was following accrual system, then this 10,000 we had to minus. This becomes, we had to minus this 10,000 rupees. But here it is given that assuming he maintains accounts on cash basis. Cash basis means whenever he's receiving cash, he will record. Whenever he's making the actual payment of cash, he is going to record it as expenditure. Therefore, we have included this 10,000 in audit fees and not given effect to it. So did everyone understand this particular sum? I have shown you a variety of sums where net profit will be given directly, where net profit will not be given, and when net profit is not given, you need to take only business incomes minus business expenses, and you will get the correct net profit. So students, have you understood problem number 5? Yes, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we are done with the time. Remaining sums we will solve in the next class. So thank you so much, students.